What's cracking, yo? Welcome back to Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today. I'm sure this comes as no surprise to anybody, but here we are. My greatest player of all time in my top 10 list, my GOAT. I'm sure, as all of you already knew, as I've mentioned it before, if you've been following this channel, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Now, to run down the list to how we got here, let's start from number 10. Number 10, Shaquille O'Neal. Number 9, Tim Duncan. Number 8, Wilt Chamberlain. Number 7, Bill Russell. Number 6, Magic Johnson. Number 5, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Number 4, LeBron James. Number 3, Larry Bird. Number 2, Kobe Bean Bryant. Number 1, Michael Jordan. Now, I can sit here for 2-3 hours. Seriously, I could sit here for 2 to 3 hours rambling on about Michael Jordan. All the stories that come with his career. All the context that comes with his career. Everything. But there's certain things, because Michael Jordan is so well documented, because Michael Jordan's story is so much understood and recognized, I'm not going to sit here forever, right, for a lengthy amount of time and talk about Mike, because we already know, right? Even people that are casuals, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but people that really don't follow basketball can tell you a bunch about Michael Jordan, unlike they could do about any other player in NBA history, because it's well documented. It's well publicized, Michael Jordan's career and the stories that come with that. All right. So I'm not going to make this very long, even though he's my number one. You'd probably expect it to go much longer, but I just feel like I'm not going to spend a lot of time on points that everybody already knows. So I just want to really quickly give my reasoning as to why he's the GOAT, my GOAT. And for so many other people as well. He seems to be still amongst all the polls that are put out among, the masses. Jordan seems to come in number one in almost every poll I've ever seen. So let's get into it. All the way from North Carolina. I got my red LEDs for Mike. But anyway, yeah. Michael Jordan, 6'6", shooting guard, roughly 215 pounds, and depending on what year you caught him in, really. Like I said, out of North Carolina, drafted in 1984, round 1 with the 3rd overall pick, was selected by the Chicago Bulls. Michael Jordan played 15 years, right? 13 with the Chicago Bulls, 2 with the Washington Wizards. But when you break it all down, really, considering the year Mike had that injury and he missed practically the entire season, and then you think about the year where he came back after his retirement where he only played less than 20 games, really during his Chicago Bull tenure, really Mike only played 11 years. 6 championships in 11 years when you think about it. It's quite impressive. So I just wanted to throw that in. And I will talk about the Wizards years briefly, though people like to gloss over it and don't mention it, but I have no problem talking about it. All right. So let's just give a quick rundown of Mike's accolades, highlights, career awards, and they are lengthy. This guy has a bevy of awards that I won't even mention in these, but this is just a quick rundown off the profile. All right. 6-time NBA champion. 2 times three-peat, okay? Undefeated in the finals. 6 times NBA Finals MVP. 5-time NBA Most Valuable Player. Should have had more. 14-time NBA All-Star. 3-time NBA All-Star Game MVP. 10-time All-NBA First Team. All-NBA Second Team once. NBA Defensive Player of the Year. 9-time NBA All-Defensive First Team. NBA Rookie of the Year. NBA All-Rookie First Team, 10-time NBA Scoring Champion, 3-time NBA Steals Leader, 2-time NBA Slam Dunk Contest winner. That is just a few. All right, Mike Mike's accolades and accomplishments are absolutely astounding and ridiculous. Everything he was able to do, man. It's been many years since Michael Jeffrey Jordan retired, and there are still many records that MJ holds. Some of them probably will never be breached, and others, as the tempo of the game tends to go up and the scoring's gone up in the NBA, especially for individual players. I still think it's going to be hard for some of these guys to break some of his scoring records that he has, even with the advantages that the players have now and the era of basketball that it is. But just some extra noteworthy records that MJ holds, just a few, not all of them, because from what I've read is that he still holds over 50 plus records. Already mentioned the most points per game in NBA history, 30.1 on an average. The most points per game in an NBA Finals series. Jordan averaged a mind-blowing 41 points per game in the 93 finals against Chucky Boy and the Phoenix Suns. Jordan was an absolute monster in that series, and he could not be stopped. And he played over 45 minutes, the 41 points per game average, but he also pulled down 8.5 rebounds and 6.3 assists during that series. So again, a testament to the overall basketball player that Michael Jordan was. And to put that into context, there are 9 times when a player has averaged 40 points per game in a playoff series. Jordan did it 5 times. Now that's as of 2021. I don't know if that's changed since then, but still. Another one that's incredibly amazing, and I'm not going to say this one will never be broken or anybody will ever achieve this, but it will be extremely, extremely difficult. Michael Jordan is the only player in NBA history to win the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and scoring title in the same season. And the only guy I can probably see this doing, only guy I can probably see doing this is maybe Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo. And Giannis came close one time, but good luck. In the 87-88 NBA regular season, Jordan put up arguably the most decorated individual season in the NBA history, pulling down all of those awards. On his career, Michael Jordan had a total of 32,292 points for an average of 30.1 points per game. Those Wizards years boosted his totals but hurt his averages, right? Rebounds, 6,672 rebounds per game for a career average of 6.2 rebounds per game. Pretty goddamn amazing for a shooting guard. Assists, 5,633 assists for an average of 5.3 assists per game. As much as people want to say that Mike was just a ball hog and didn't pass the ball, that is kind of not true. 5 assists for his career, on an average for a shooting guard is pretty damn good. Just saying. Yeah, Mike took a lot of shots, but Mike was an extremely good passer as well. Make no mistake about it. He did average 8 assists one of his years. One of the years in his career. 8 assists, 8 rebounds, actually. So, just saying. Let me just start with, like I said, I'm going to try to keep this short, man, because we all know Mike. Mike the player, man. Mike is one of those players where the eye test tells you everything you need to know. Screw the stats. Screw the accolades. Screw all the shit, right? When you watch this guy play, in my opinion, it's just like what I'm watching is unreal, and how can you say that this isn't the best player on the basketball court at any given time? Michael Jeffrey Jordan did so much for the NBA, right? Larry Bird and Magic Johnson resuscitated it, brought it back to life, sent it a new direction. Michael came in, there was some overlap between Magic, Larry, Mike. Eventually, Mike took over. Mike really made the game global. Mike made the game global. Mike made himself global. Mike made his brand global. Mike is legendary. Mike is an icon, worldwide recognized as arguably the greatest athlete of all time, not just basketball player, right? Michael Jordan captivated the entire world, arguably like no other athlete ever has, okay? His mannerisms, his charisma, his character, his smile, the tongue out, everything, man. Mike just captivated the world. But the player, let's get back to the player, man. We'll start with offense. Michael Jordan is arguably the greatest scorer of all time. And most people would say he's the greatest scorer of all time. Michael Jordan, this dude's game, this dude's bag was unreal. Mike could kill you from everywhere on the court, and he would kill you from everywhere on the court. The dude was relentless. The dude had unbelievable drive. The dude had unbelievable work ethic, and he would just come for your throat. Win or lose, he would leave it all out on the court, was MJ, right? Just watching him play, seeing his intensity for 48 minutes or however many minutes he played, but for the duration of the game, the dudes just keep coming at you no matter what, no matter how many times you put him on the floor, no matter how many, whatever you do, Detroit Pistons, it don't matter. He was still, win or lose, coming for your head, and you could not stop him. You could not stop him. Not no Jordan rules, not no Pistons. Yeah, you could beat the Bulls. You can beat the team. But you were not stopping Michael Jeffrey Jordan, right? And as long as he was on the floor, his team had a chance no matter who you put him with. As quiet as it's kept, we know they didn't take a lot of three-point shots back in the day, but Michael Jordan could hit the three ball. Normally, threes weren't a thing back then, right? Mike would maybe take 1 or 2 threes a game, most games. But I'm just saying, that as we all know, the three-pointer wasn't emphasized. But Michael Jordan operated in the mid-range and at the goal. Michael Jordan was a complete assassin in the mid-range. You couldn't stop him, man. Double team, triple team, nothing you can do. He could put the ball on the floor. He could break defenders down without even dribbling, just by his footwork and his fadeaway. Body movement. Being able to palm the ball. Michael Jordan had these massive gloves, these hands. Y'all think Kawhi Leonard? Michael Jordan could just palm the ball and I say he draws Doctor Strange portals with the basketball. Just send defenders looking different ways, misdirection, everything, just by palming the ball, fake passing, fake shooting. I've never seen anybody do it like Mike like that. It's phenomenal. Watching him play, aesthetically, it's pleasing to the eyes. But he gets the job done. It's not just aesthetics. It's getting the job done, right? So he could break defenders down without even dribbling. Call it what it is. Footwork, pivot work, left foot, right foot. In the post fadeaway. He made the fadeaway famous. Michael Jordan made the fadeaway famous. It was his go-to move, especially more into his career when he started relying on it more. Earlier in his career, he was more of a straight face-up jump shooter. He would go to the fadeaway, even in the earlier parts of his career, but it wasn't as much as a staple as it was later in his career. But the fadeaway, boom, boom, left, right, however you want it. Dip the shoulder, uses his legs, strong separation on his fingers, on his shooting hand, killing it, man. You couldn't stop him. Leaning, left, right, left hand, left foot, right foot. The fadeaway was unstoppable. Unstoppable. Michael Jordan had great ball handling. Michael Jordan was extremely athletic. We all know that. When Michael Jordan went to the cup, get out the way or get dunked on. Seriously. I've seen Michael Jordan dunk on 3-4 people at once. Michael Jordan was extremely hyper athletic, extremely fast in the fast break, extremely nimble, great first step, great burst of speed, burst of energy, soaring in the air, finishing with finesse and finishing with vigor and strength. Michael Jordan, in my opinion, has the best touch around the basket in the history of the league. He's the best finisher at the basket I've ever seen. If he wasn't dunking the ball, no matter what kind of defensive you had at the paint, no matter how many shot blockers you had in the paint, how many players was in there to contest Michael Jordan's shot, he would find a way to get that ball off. He's the best finisher I've ever seen, dude. He'd switch hands right to left or left to right, scoop in the air, body contortion, doing all this shit here, reversing, coming up, doing that shit there behind the back, behind the shoulder. Freaking, freaking, you just do things you've never seen before. It's so poetic, so graceful. Poetry in motion once he got in the air. And you see this, it's like, oh man, he's jumping at these 7-footers, these shot blockers, 2 or 3 of them. How's he gonna get the shot off? Switch over here, bring the ball back, still in the air, bring it back this way. I'm just like, Mike was special, an amazing finisher. Nobody really had a knack for putting that ball in the basket quite like Michael Jeffrey Jordan, arguably the greatest scorer in the league. There are some players that when they got hot, they were hotter than Michael. Like Kobe. Like when Kobe got hot, Kobe was blistering hot. I feel like nobody gets hot like Kobe when Kobe got hot. The things he could do, the things he would do. But Michael Jordan is extremely consistent. Extremely consistent. May not be the hottest when he got hot, but he was a consistent scorer. All right. Just a quick rundown, year by year on his scorings. Rookie year, 28.2 points per game. Let's throw in 6 assists, rounded, 5.9. 6 assists, 6.5 rebounds. Call it what it is. Next year, he had the injury, 22 points per game. Came back from the injury next season, 37.1 points per game. 35 points per game, 32.5 points per game, 33.6 points per game, 31.5 points per game, 30.1 points per game, 32.6 points per game, 26.9, 30.4, 29.6, 28.7. And then after that, the Wizards years, he was in the low 20s. But never once in his career did he ever average less than 20 points per game. Even as an old, beat-up geezer, somewhat out of shape, but still in good shape, but not in basketball shape, after coming back with the Wizards as a 38, 39, 40-year-old man. Now, he was still giving you 20, 30 any given day. Okay, make no mistake about it. And then that year, he averaged 32.5 points per game. He threw in 8 assists and 8 rebounds. Fantastic. Mike was a problem. All right. I could go on forever talking about his scoring, but let's talk about his passing ability. Michael Jordan is a very underrated passer. Yes, Michael Jordan was predominantly a scorer, but Michael Jordan was an all-around basketball player. It's just that his scoring was so goddamn elite and mesmerizing. It's all everybody wanted to talk about. And it used to upset Michael because nobody talked about his playmaking. Nobody talked about his ability to find his open man. Nobody talked about his defensive prowess. And he publicly called that shit out, specifically the defense, because he wanted recognition for it. And he was getting labeled a scorer. And Mike was like, hold up, what are you talking about? I do a lot of things. Was Michael as good of a passer as some of these other players? No, I'm not saying that. But Michael Jordan is a very underrated passer and has thrown some of the best passes I've ever seen in my life, especially with his ability to palm the basketball and then fake passes. The dude is phenomenal. He doesn't get enough credit for his passing. And what people fail to understand is that Mike was like more players back in the day. He didn't dominate the basketball in a way. I mean, you guys hear me say this a lot, but like you see players today do. They're the system, especially once Mike got with Phil Jackson and the triangle. The triangle, there's not one guy monopolizing the ball, getting the assist, man. The ball is spread around. Any given day, the assist can be spread out, or one guy may have more than other, but it might not be a Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan might get a lot of hockey assists. But Mike was the focal point in the center because in the triangle, right? Unlike when Kobe was in it, Shaq was the focal point. So very different dynamic. At least in Kobe's first three-peat with Phil. All right. Fun fact. A lot of people don't know this, but in the 91 finals against the greatest point guard of all time in Magic Johnson, in my opinion, Michael Jordan averaged 11.4 assists for that series. He averaged 31.2 points, 11.4 assists, and 6.6 rebounds in that 5-game series against the Los Angeles Lakers. Incredible. Game 1 he had 12 assists. Game 2 he had 13 assists, followed by 9 assists, 13 assists, and 10 assists. Now he never did hit the triple double at any point there, but pretty amazing averages and his playmaking. And even for that series, when people talk about that series, they always want to go to the switcheroo that he did against the Lakers, right? But that dude was playmaking the hell out of the basketball that series. He was orchestrating that offense like a maestro, like a maestro. And I think it was very, very telling of how much of a complete basketball player Michael Jordan was, and that he would do something like this in his first ever finals appearance and championship to show them how versatile he is and he can do more than scoring. With that being said, defense. Michael Jordan is probably the best defensive shooting guard of all time, and arguably the best defensive guard of all time. I mentioned all the All NBA defensive selections, but that doesn't even do it justice, right? Michael Jordan was a Doberman. Michael Jordan was a pit bull, a bulldog. Michael Jordan was extremely strong. Have you seen this guy's body? Have you seen this guy's hands, legs, everything? Strong player, extremely athletic, extremely smart defensively. His speed allowed him to cover so many plays. I've seen him on defensive plays hound a guy. He passes to the open guy. Before I could blink my eyes, Mike was already on the other guy, almost as fast as the pass was, hounding these people. Lockdown defender, would get the steal. Damn good shot blocker. Damn good rebounder. Michael would get up there and just snatch people's shit out of the air. Reject that shit. Smack that shit. Hit that shit. Bro. Mike's defense was a problem. All right? He was responsible for so many of those Chicago Bull fast breaks. Whether he's getting the assist or he's finishing on a fast break with a dunk, Michael Jordan was either most of the time initiating that steal, that block, that lockdown defense, that forcing somebody to shoot after the shot clock done went off, the buzzer went off. And he was an amazing help defender as well. Mike was a problem. And I'm glad he finally started getting acknowledged for his defensive prowess, man. In one of the most iconic shots in NBA history, he made the steal against the Utah Jazz to come back down and hit the shot in picture perfect fashion. Picture perfect fashion. I've talked about Mike's footwork, said he was a great dribbler, said he's an underrated passer, amazing defensive player, amazing scorer. Mike was incredible. Mike was incredible. And when you think about the fact that he played 13 years with the Bulls, but really, like I said, you consider those injuries and the retirement, right? Mike retired in his career 3 times. But when you take those 2 seasons, like, this dude got 6 championships in 11 years when you really think about it. But even if you say, okay, 6 for 13, yeah, that's still goddamn amazing. The first time Larry Bird, I'll never forget this, man. I love Larry because Larry he don't sugarcoat nothing. He just tell how it is. But Larry basically said, the first time he saw Michael Jordan, he knew that guy was going to be the greatest player ever. And he said this, that guy is going to be the greatest player ever. You watch. Larry stood on that. And one thing Larry really admired about Mike and knew to be true of Michael Jordan, and Larry said, quote, Michael could beat you in a lot of different ways. He can beat you mentally, beat you physically. He can guard you. He can score. I know in my time, he was better than all of us. And that's saying a lot coming from Larry Legend, who was arguably the best player in his era during his prime. Do we even need to talk about the clutch performer that Michael Jordan was? I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's well documented. And come on, when everybody says Jordan, they talking about clutch moment, baby. Michael is largely regarded as the most clutch player in the history of the National Basketball Association. Many people consider him that, man. There was nothing more scary if you were a fan in a close game against the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan was on the floor. Not only would Michael Jordan rip your heart out offensively with daggers, he would also do it on the defensive end as well. Both sides of the court, Mike was clutch. Game winner after game winner after game. Now, people like to skew this. They depending on what you're watching or what who's presenting the argument, they'll try to define clutch as 5 seconds or less with this much disparity between the scores, or this much second left, so that many seconds, or 1 minute or 2 minutes, however you want to look at it. I don't give a damn. 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, in a close game. Michael Jordan was second to no one. The guy was absolutely reliable. And he has the most game-winning buzzer beaters in the history of the league. And that's saying a lot, considered the people that he's often compared to that came up after him played much longer than Michael Jordan, had much more games to play, many more years to eclipse him in a lot of these stats, and they still haven't been able to. Fun fact, starting from 1996 to 2003, which would include his tail end of his Chicago Bulls tenure and his 2 years with the Washington Wizards, Michael Jordan ranked number 1 in clutch shooting with 5 seconds left, shooting almost 41%. Incredible. Mike was phenomenal. I'm not going to go on much further than that with the clutch point because you could sit here for hours, but simply put, Mike is largely regarded as the most dangerous assassin when the game is on the line, and he'd do it regular season and in the playoffs. But Michael Jordan still was not the face of the league early in his career. He was working his way up there. When Michael Jordan got drafted to the Bulls, a lot of people say, Michael Jordan really wasn't winning championships and had early playoff exits for the first couple years of his career, which is absolutely true. That's not a lie, right? The first 6 years of his career, he was drafted in '84, right? So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He didn't win a championship till his 7th year. Now, with that being said, that's still pretty damn good compared to the field and the history of the league. What Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were able to do, coming in and having that very early success, is unprecedented. And I don't knock other players for not being able to do that because that's so abnormal, but it is a nod to Larry Bird and Magic Johnson for being able to do it. Now, to be fair, Magic got drafted to a team where Magic was pretty much the missing piece. Magic was great, but he was the missing piece. They already had Kareem, and they had good role players. Larry Bird, amazing what he did. Turned that Boston Celtics franchise around. He didn't even have McHale and them boys the first year. I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on that, but I think so. But Larry Bird didn't start winning until he got that help, that McHale and them other boys, right? Michael Jordan came onto the Chicago Bulls, and the best player outside of Mike was Wooldridge. But he was an okay player, but it ain't no goddamn McHale, it ain't no Kareem Abdul-Jabbar by any stretch of the imagination. All right. So Michael Jordan, as great as he was and his ability to carry the load of that team, and he wasn't the facilitator that Larry was or Magic was, no. But he was still a damn good facilitator. But, Michael was amazing. Unfortunately, the teams that he were on were not as amazing. I just call it what it is, man. Those early Bulls rosters weren't the best. But as Mike continued to grow as a player, right, as amazing as he was as a rookie, like the dude was goddamn amazing. He continued to learn the game, continued to work at his craft, continued to evolve as a player, and that's saying a lot considering how good he was Started to figure things out year by year by year. During that time, the franchise, the GM, they're starting to build around him, put pieces around him so that Michael's growing, the roster's growing, and eventually they would get the job done. Now, a common misconception, people think that when Scottie Pippen arrived, he was already a made man. He was already ready to go. Like, it's like, okay, Scottie came and then Mike automatically started winning championships. Scottie's here. No. No, 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 no. Scottie got drafted by the Bulls in the 1987 season. All right. Rookie season, 87-88. Believe it or not, folks, Scottie Pippen only averaged 7.9 points per game in his rookie year. Scottie Pippen did not start a single game for the Chicago Bulls in his rookie year, playing only 20 minutes per game. Scottie Pippen had to grow as a player, had to evolve as a player. He was not ready to go. Neither was Horace Grant. Michael Jordan had a lot to do with the growth of Scottie Pippen and turning him into the player that Scottie would eventually become and the player that Mike needed to be his wingman. Mike had a lot to do with Scottie's growth. And kudos to Scottie for putting in the work and becoming that player as well. You got to want it. But Mike had a lot of reason for that. Mike made Scottie better as he did a lot of his other teammates. So let's just keep that a buck. Let's keep that a buck. It wasn't until Scottie's 5th season where he was able to breach 20 points per game. And he had 7 assists per game. And he had 7 rebounds per game. But that was his really big breakout season. But that was 5 years in. Right? By Scottie's 4th year, they won their first championship. But it took time. Scottie was not NBA ready coming in. So people tend to think that, but that was not the case. He needed some growing and maturing as well. But once Scottie got to that plateau and figured it out, they got Phil Jackson, and they got that supporting cast around him. It was off to the races for the Bulls. They had what they needed. Magic, Larry Bird were fading into the sunset. We're in the 90s now, and this was the Chicago Bulls era. 91, 92, 93, champions. Michael retires, comes back, loses to the Orlando Magic, not quite himself, wearing number 45, but will come back the next season, rejuvenated, 96, 97, 98, champion. Undefeated, ripping people's hearts out, stopped so many greats from getting championships during the 90s. So many greats would not eat on Michael Jordan's watch. Now, some people think that the Bulls would have lost to the Rockets even if Michael didn't retire during 93, 94, 94, 95. Some people say, well, they didn't have Rodman at the time. They wouldn't have been able to handle Hakeem. Well, they wouldn't have been able to handle Jordan. They were saying the same thing about Shaquille O'Neal when Michael Jordan came back. Not the year they lost to the Magic, but when he came back as number 23, they were saying, oh, what you going to do about, Shaq. Shaq said, Mike said, what? What they going to do about me? Lit their ass up. Terrorized them. Shaquille O'Neal publicly said the only guy that put fear in him was Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan put fear in a lot of people. Simply incredible. I often wonder what Michael Jordan's career would have been if he wouldn't have retired. And I understand everything that was going on, going to play basketball, the death of his father, it's a lot. But I truly believe had Mike just played and played and played like the players do now, I think Mike would have had 8 to 10 championships. I truly believe that. I truly believe that. At least 8. 10 might be a little bit of a stretch, but at least 8. I think Mike would have got 8. One thing I would also like to add is I think when I look at Michael Jordan and his championship teams compared to other players with championship teams, I think Mike really did the most with the least amount of help comparatively. You know, you look at his main wingman, who was Scottie Pippen, wasn't nearly on the level of Michael Jordan or even some of the other great super duper stars at the time. Scottie was fantastic. Scottie was great, but compared to like the other pantheon of greats that we generally compare Mike to, Scottie, he wasn't on their level, man. Even when Mike left and went to play baseball and the team was Scottie's, he did an admirable job. The Bulls were still one of the better teams in the league, obviously not championship material. And Scottie was averaging like what, 20 to 22 points per game, 5 assists, 8 rebounds, something like that. Admirable, but definitely not Michael Jordan-esque. And he proved to still be an all-star, but not a superstar. Even with the incredible defensive player Scottie was. An all-star, most definitely. Superstar, not quite. For a long time, Michael Jordan had only played with 2 Hall of Fame players while they were still in their prime. Yes, I know Robert Parrish joined the Chicago Bulls, I think 95, 96, or 96, 97, something like that. I think it might have been 96, 97. But Parrish was way over the hill. He was a role player at best, played like 40-something games in each of those 2 seasons and was averaging like 2 or 3 points per game. It was not the same Robert Parrish that Larry Bird had. Make no mistake about it. And that's Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and here Tony Kukoc got enshrined in the Hall of Fame just 2 years ago. But before was that 2021? Before 2021, it was just Scottie and Rodman. And top 75 players, it's just Scottie and Rodman. Hall of Fame, Kukoc, Rodman, Scottie. I'm pretty sure. If I'm mistaken on that, call me out on it in the comment section, but I'm pretty sure. But I mean, I look at his Hall of Fame and top 75 players that he had, and it really doesn't compare to some of the other Hall of Famers and top 75 players that some of these other players played with during their championship runs. Rodman was amazing. Great pesky guy. Amazing rebounder. Arguably the best rebounder ever. Probably out. That's arguable. But definitely the best rebounder in his era. I'll give Rodman that. But he was a complete liability offensively. He had nothing to give on the offensive end. But he was the player that the Chicago Bulls needed to really anchor the defense and the rebounding and control the paint a bit. And Tony Kukoc, fine young player. At the end of the day, Tony Kukoc was still a role player. A good one. During that Bulls run, he averaged like, 12, 13 points per game. After Mike retired, I think he was the best player on the Bulls after 98, and he was good for 17, 18 points per game as one of the focal point pieces. But I feel like some people glorify some of these role players too much at the Chicago Bulls. Love Tony Kukoc. He could step up in big moments. He could hit clutch shots. Good versatile player, good size. But he was a good role player. Steve Kerr, I think, is a glorified role player. Let's be honest about Kerr. A little bit pesky defender at times, but he's a spot-up shooter at the end of the day. Smart player, but Kerr is a spot-up shooter. But let's just run down, during those 6 championships, I'll run down the players that were part of that Chicago Bulls roster. And you'll see that a lot of these guys weren't so much good standalone pieces, but more so good pieces that fit well within the triangle. And I'm going down this list, and I was like, I don't even know who some of these players are. So there may be some second or third stringers, but that would also go to tell you that their bench didn't always go that deep when you think about it. All right, let's go down the list. And this isn't everybody. This is just a majority of them. Craig Hodges, John Paxson, Horace Grant, who is not a Hall of Famer, believe it or not. Bill Cartwright, Scottie, Horace, B.J. Armstrong, Stacey King, Cliff Levingston, Chuck Nevitt, Will Perdue, Mark Randall, Rory Sparrow, Scott Williams, Ricky Lanton, Randy Brown. You see where I'm getting at? Judd Butler, Jason Caffey, Jack Haley, Ron Harper. Good, solid role player at the time. Was no longer in his prime, but better than the Lakers version of Ron Harper. Steve Kerr, Kukoc, Luke Longley, Dennis Rodman, John Sally, Bill Wennington, Robert Parrish, Scott Burrell, Rusty LaRue, David Vaughn. You see the point I'm trying to make here. I don't think people realize those Chicago Bulls rosters weren't always as deep as people tend to remember them to be. So yeah, I think when I look at it, I think Jordan for his championships did a whole lot with probably less than the people we tend to compare him to. Ever since the Miami Heat summoned the super team, and we've been seeing super teams pop up in the league since then. Recently, I've started hearing people say that the combination of Michael, Scotty, and Dennis Rodman are a super team, and I'm like, don't do this. Stop the nonsense. Michael, Scotty, and Rodman do not make a super team. I have to vehemently disagree. I really do. I really do. I can't go there. I cannot go there. Rodman, outstanding defensive player, outstanding rebounder. But that is more or less where it ends. Offensively, he just doesn't have much to offer. You can't compare him to James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Chris Bosh, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade. Just to name a few. I can't go there. I can't say him, Scotty, and Rodman are a super team. Now, if it was Michael at some point, Michael, Magic, Larry, yeah, that's a super team. You know what I'm saying? Michael, Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, that's a super team. Patrick Ewing, that's a super team. I can't go there. I can't go there. Rodman can't be the best player on my team, and I expect him to have a major impact and lead them into the playoffs with Dennis Rodman being my best player. I could literally go on forever talking about all the amazing things Michael Jordan accomplished in his career, especially with the Chicago Bulls. The dude was phenomenal. I'm not even gonna sit here and talk about his brand and the Jordan sneaker line and how legendary and monumental that has been worldwide. And for hundreds of years after Michael Jordan passes away, that Jordan brand will stay dominant. No question about that. Um, but I said I was going to talk a little bit about the Wizards years because I do think there are some things worth mentioning. Yes, I understand Michael Jordan came back at what, 38 years old, 39, 37, 38, something like that, with the Washington Wizards. Thought he could lead them to the playoffs. Did not lead them to the playoffs in those two seasons with the Wizards. Really didn't have a whole lot of help on that squad. I mean, he had Rip Hamilton, Jerry Stackhouse, I do believe, Kwame Brown. I think Larry Hughes was there. I think Tyronn Lue was there. Some other pieces. Uh, what's that one center's name? I can't remember his name. Anyway, I just want to note that Jordan gets a lot of heat. Like people say he sucked during his Wizards years, which was not the case, first of all. At his age, not playing for a couple years, not really in the best shape of his career. He was a lot stronger, a lot bulkier than he was previously. Obviously lost a step, getting close into his 40s. But when he came back, he was an MVP candidate. And he was one of the premier and best players in the league still. Michael Jordan, along with Kobe Bryant and Tracy McGrady, were the only three players in the league averaging at least 25 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Those were the only three guys doing it in that 2001-2002 season. And the Washington Wizards were in playoff contention. Michael Jordan was actually heating up as we got closer to the All-Star break. He was putting up some blistering numbers, even above his averages. I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I think he was pushing like high 20s, 30 points per game, shooting high accuracy from field goal range. And like I said, the assists and rebounds. The dude was more or less dominating. Then he sustained a horrible knee injury the second half of that season, and after that he was never the same. He would religiously have to get his knee drained prior to damn near every single game to just be able to get out there and go play. And he still gutted it out and played as many games as he possibly could. But ever since that knee injury, that was the nail in the coffin. Because before that, he started out that season at a torrid pace. And there was no doubt in my mind or anybody's mind that the Washington Wizards were primed to make a playoff run. Whether they made it out the first or second round, I don't care. They were about to make the playoffs, and Michael Jordan was an MVP candidate. Go check the facts. Go. It's all there. I'm not making this up. So I just wanted to add context to his Wizards years because the dude was a problem up until that injury. And even after that, even coming back, still dealing with that knee was never the same. He was still good for 20 points per game any given night. And if you were unlucky, he would give you a 30, 40, 50 piece because he did during his Wizards tenure. And he definitely lost a step defensively, but he was still an average defender most nights, even with the loss in his step. So I just had to just put some context on those Wizards years. I had to. But anyway, like I said, I can sit here forever. A lot of people have many different reasons on why they think Michael Jordan is a GOAT. For a lot of people, they just say 6-0, 6-0, 6-0, 6-0. It's like, no, it's definitely a part of it. It's a big part of it. But God, this guy did so much more than just going 6-0 in the finals. A whole lot more. And he's been everything to the NBA. Really set the standard for the NBA globally. There's an icon, a legend. And, many people that's played against Mike would say that he's the greatest player of all time. Not everyone, but many would say that. Many would give it up to him. And even as the years go on and people tend to forget the little tidbits in history and the details and the games and what happened and the context and the storylines, all these things slowly start to fade as time goes on for each era and each generation. But to this day, many, 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 many years after Mike hung it up, he is still predominantly considered in most polls by the general public to be the greatest of all time. At the end of the day, all of this is subjective, but Michael Jordan's my GOAT, and you heard my top 10 players of all time. Thank you. This has been a lot of fun doing this. I appreciate each and every one of you. Fantastic people. Appreciate everybody giving me their opinion on who they think who their top 10 players of all time are and who their GOAT are. I've heard a lot of different GOATs. I've heard Larry Bird. I've heard Magic Johnson. I've heard Wilt. I've heard Kareem. And all these guys have a legitimate argument. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and I'll catch you on the next one. We out, baby.